For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble. Thanks for tuning in at thescribbleshow.com and on SoundCloud and iTunes. It's 30 minutes of rants this week. There's a lot on my mind. Okay. Quite a bit about parenting as well. You know, I don't have actual kids myself. I've got pets. I've got animals. But there, you know, that whole college admissions scandal, would you actually feel happy if your parents bought your way into school? Or is that just their way of saying, hey, you know what, we don't think you can do this on your own? Really, is it flattering or is it an insult? My thoughts coming up in just a little bit. And also when celebrity parents bring their kids into the family business and also, you know, whore them out on social media. That's the term I'll use, whore them out on social media. Well, that whole privacy thing comes into play. Now, what about respecting your neighbors? When I was a kid, we knew our neighbors as Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so. Now, people just don't have the same respect for neighbors. I'll tell you some stories coming up. And also, travel rants. Are you just really impatient when you're on your way home after a trip? Do you just want to get home as fast as possible and say, okay? Or do you really feel like spending 10 more hours on a plane after a week or so of traveling? I got some travel tales for you. And nodding off during television. I feel like I'm getting really old because it happens more and more lately. Nodding off while watching The Tube. That's 30 minutes of rants coming up, and it starts right after this.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
JB here on The Scribble. Everybody is still talking about this college bribery scam or scandal, and they're talking about the, white privilege is a term that comes up a lot, and everybody's saying about how, well, these kids are really lucky that their parents can afford to, pay off these schools to get them in. Let's look at it from the kids' perspective, because on the surface, it's kind of like, oh, that's really cool, my parents would do that for me. At the end of the day, though, it's also your parents not believing that you've got the ability to be able to make it into a school on your own. And it's funny because for weeks after the story broke, I hadn't thought about that. But then I was like, somebody said like, oh, you'd be lucky if your parents did that. Now, I couldn't afford to finish college. I'm a proud college dropout. Things have turned out okay for me. But yeah, I would look at that and go, Mom, Dad, like, why did you feel that you had to do that? Like, you didn't think that I was smart enough to do it on my own? And of course, if I'm a rich, spoiled brat, I wouldn't even want to go to the school anyway. And just like one of was it Lori Loughlin's daughter who was just like, I don't even want to go to, it's such a bad, and she just wants to go and party and do it up on so-and-so's yacht. But yeah, for me as a kid, I would actually be really, really pissed off at my parents. Now, of course, we wonder, did the kids know about this scheme? Were they in on it? Did somebody make them aware of it? Okay, that's one thing. But that's where I would go and say like, yeah, no thanks. I would try to prove it to my parents that I can do this on my own. You remember, I had this growing up where I was applying for jobs at a newspaper. This is going back now, I was going to say 20 years. I'm not that old. Maybe about 15 years. And we had a fax machine in the basement, and my mom heard the squealing of the fax machine one day, and she came downstairs and asked me what I was doing. And I said, I'm just applying for a job at a newspaper in Alberta. And she was the one who said, why don't you just give it up already? Nobody's going to hire you. You're not done school. You don't have a vehicle. You're not from there. And, maybe I think this is one of those times where, parents aren't always right. Mother knows best is the saying, right? I don't believe that to be true, because I just think that for me, that was my "I'll prove you wrong" moment. That was like, you know what, how dare you go and say that I can't do this and that I shouldn't try. And so I think that I would have the same reaction if my parents were paying a ton of money for me to get into a school. Like, there was no bigger, like, when I took creative communications at this college, and it was, again, something you had to apply to. You had to write a test, you had to give a portfolio, you had to go for an interview. Like, it was pretty intense. And we're talking about just a local community college here. And they only take, at the time it was like, 70 people or 70 some people. And it was a very, very strict selection process. And so that alone, to be able to get in, they made it seem like it was a big deal, like it was some big exclusive thing. And I was able to do it on my own, based on creating a portfolio, interviewing really well. That gave me a sense of pride, as opposed to like, hey, my mom and dad slipped you a couple $10,000, couple $100,000, and boom, now I'm in. Okay, I had more of a passion for what I wanted to do, which ironically was communications and journalism. So that right there would be really funny to get busted paying for. But yeah, I'd be totally pissed at my parents if that was the only way that I got into school. And then now all of a sudden it's public knowledge. So if the girls were in on it, in the case of the Huffman and Lachlan drama, if the daughters were in on it, well, that's one thing. If I had no clue about it and all of a sudden I'm thrown into the tabloid spotlight, I would be mortified at my parents. If it was my idea as the kid, okay, it's one thing. But yeah, no, I'd just be like, yeah, Mom, why didn't you think that I was good enough to do this on my own? We need to have a discussion. Tell me what you think about that. What are your thoughts? Send me an email, live@jbonair.com, live@jbonair.com.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate, at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate, at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Jeremy Bradley here, back on the Scribble. Do you know your neighbors? Do you like them? Are you on a first-name basis with them? When I was growing up at home, our neighbors were old Ukrainian and Polish couples, and we knew them as Mr. and Mrs. Rupel, Mr. and Mrs. Huzel, Mrs. Pellick. Like, I think that it wasn't until we were a little bit older that we knew their first names, but certainly there was that level of respect that they were Mr. and Mrs. That's my point. And maybe they were Mr. and Mr. Who knows? I'm not one to judge. And so when I bought my house, now this is fast forwarding to when I was 25 or so. I've been in my house for 11 years. I had that dream of, okay, I'm going to be, in with my neighbors, and we're going to be having drinks in the backyard, and we'll be social. And because we did that when we were growing up, we would go to their houses for birthday parties. They would come to ours if it was my brother's or my birthday party. And I had that dream of, like, just the nice neighborhood. And I've had actually rotating neighbors on either side, in either the house on either side of me. And I've kind of been the one who's stuck around here. Now, in the winter, I got a note in my door, which is always a little bit creepy, right? It's like, oh, and it's, dear homeowner or whatever it was. And it was a handwritten note. It wasn't anything that was like junk mail. And I've had it before where, I'm not the best at, like, cutting my grass and stuff like that. So neighbors that used to live beside me, this old Russian couple, we didn't have the greatest relationship. And so, they would leave me notes that say that, I'm, like, bringing down the neighborhood. It's like, you guys have lived here for, like, maybe 2 years. Who are you to tell me? Anyway, so it wasn't uncommon for me to get, like, just kind of a, please take care of the weeds that are up against your fence. It's like, mind your own goddamn business, right? Anyway. So I get a note in my mailbox, or it slipped in my door last winter, and it was, dear homeowner, and it's like, oh, hi, my name is da-da-da-da, I live across the lane from you, and, I moved away for a while, but I'm back, living with my parents, and I need, my dad said that, there's a spot in your driveway that I could potentially use because, you've got an open space in your lot. And I was just wondering if I could rent it from you for the winter, and again, in Canada, you have to plug in your car in certain areas because it's too cold and you need to keep the charge, you need to keep your you just need to keep your car plugged in. And so I was like, well, all right, whatever, fine. And so I said, yeah, sure, great, whatever. And, he's going to pay me however much a month. And so for the first little while, it actually made me take I did a double take, because I was like, oh my God, somebody's parked in my driveway. Now, the reason why I would do that was because those Russian neighbors I talked about people would just park in my driveway. And it's like, no. And I even had a friend over one time, and they parked behind him and essentially blocked him into my driveway. And I was like, yeah, no. So yeah, we didn't have the best relationship. Anyway, so this guy across the lane, I thought, oh, okay, well, whatever. And it's, it's a little extra cash over the winter anyway. And so, he's parking in my driveway for about a good, 3-4 months. And then spring comes, right? The snow is all gone. And for the first couple of days, I started to worry. And I was like, I hope everything's okay. He hasn't been parking in my driveway. So what seemed to be, I don't want to say it was a nuisance, because, it sort of blocked where I would put out my recycling bins, so it was a bit of a change. But, yeah, I don't know. It was sort of like, oh, that's right. Yeah, he's still, this freeloader is still in my driveway. And then when he's actually gone, I'm kind of like, oh, well, he's gone now. I hope everything's okay. Maybe I should go to their street and see, is he parking on the front? Is he cheating on me with his own street now? And yeah, so for the first couple of days, it's weird that I have this sort of strange attachment to the guy, and I've only really ever seen him a couple times when he texts me, and then we're gonna square up on the payments, right? And then I just go out to the yard, he hands over the fence, and that's it. And yeah, it's strange. I think, yeah, I've got this weird emotional attachment. Anyway, just thought I'd tell you that story. Yeah, all right. Should we move on? Let's move on.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
Jeremy Bradley here on The Scribble, and again, thanks for tuning in at thescribbleshow.com and on SoundCloud and iTunes. Yeah, parents mean well. That's how I'm going to start this story, everybody. Parents mean well. At least I think they do. My parents picked me up at the airport. I call them the Ropers from time to time because, you ask one of them for help, but then both of them show up, right? I ask my dad to help me fix something at the house, and then, my mom comes and she's caddying. She's the one carrying all the stuff or whatever. Anyway, so I came home, I flew in to the city, and they picked me up at the airport. It was after midnight or so, and I had been traveling for just a really long time, and I'm the type of person who, towards the end of the trip, on that last leg, that last flight, I just want to get home, and I'm just done with it all. I don't want anybody in my way. I just want to get off the plane. I just want to go home. I don't want to talk to anybody. And unfortunately, though, when you come back from a trip, and I had done, I was gone for about a week, and I had gone to a few different cities in the United States, and so there was just a lot to tell. There was a lot for them to ask, and there was a lot for me to tell, and I wasn't having it. I just wasn't into it. And we had done, we had a booth at a festival, and we were selling a bunch of things, and I had come home with this big wad of cash. And if you know about Canadian and American currency, you know the Canadian dollar isn't as good as the American one, right? And so American money is sort of looked at as oh, this is prestigious at that point. You're a Canadian, you've got all this money. So I had about $1,000, about $700 or $800 American, which was about $1,000 Canadian. And so I had, they asked how the sale was, and so as a joke, I kind of whipped out this big wad, almost like a drug dealer kind of thing, and I handed it to my mom. And almost immediately she was like, well, you better take this to the bank. And I said, well, yeah, I mean, it's midnight at this point, but yeah, I will. And then she's basically trying to convince me, and then my dad gets in on it as well, to, they'll hang on to it for me. And I was like, well, why? They're like, well, you can't keep this much, laying around the house. And I said, well, again, it's not going to be like I'm spreading it out all over the kitchen table, so if somebody breaks in, they're going to like, oh, I know, but you're not going to have this money laying around. I said, there are plenty of hiding places. My house is bigger than theirs. There are plenty of hiding places in my house. I'm sorry. I can find a place. Unless the robber or the burglar comes in with a money-sniffing dog, I'm going to be okay. I think I'll be okay. And at the same time, there's actual things in my house that are more expensive. Like, take the television, right? Take the expensive TV. You're not going to root around and go, oh, I just found underneath the hamper in the laundry room $1,000. Like, yes, of course I'm going to put it somewhere. I'm not just going to leave it. And so they were just insistent. They insisted that I give them are you sure? Well, that, because, Dad's home now. He's home all day. My dad's retired. He's home. So, and I was like, what? Is he a security guard? Does he have security cameras and guns and everything? And that's going to be his mission now, is to protect my $1,000? Like, I don't know what it was, but it was almost kind of like, you've got that much cash, you're all of a sudden like, uh-oh. And I think that they're those type of people. I guess I kind of feel like if I have a lot of money and I'm walking down the street, I feel paranoid. Like, something about me is going to tell these people, hey, this guy's got a lot of money. Meanwhile, it's like, just carry on about your business, right? Nobody will ever know. But it was very strange to me that my parents were so insistent that are you sure? Are you sure you don't want us told? Well, all right. Well, you make sure that you take that to the bank tomorrow then when it opens. Like, yes, thank you very much. Again, my house is worth more than yours. My furniture is worth more than yours. My electronics are worth more than yours. And I don't even like to play. I don't have that pissing contest with my parents. I really don't. But it certainly does make you kind of want to go like, can you guys just maybe chill out a little bit? Like, really, in the grand scheme of things, so. Anyway, tell me what you think about that. If your parents, you're a grown-up, I'm 36 years old, but they just, they still think they know best, and there's no telling them otherwise. And they'll try to keep giving you more and more reason to doubt yourself or to second guess. And I will be honest, not for 1 minute did I think, oh yeah, I better give it to them, I better let them hang on to it. Yeah, no. I've got 2 big dogs in my house as well, just so you know. All right. Again, send me an email if your thoughts are different or the same as mine. I'd love to hear from you. live@jbonair.com. live@jbonair.com.
It's never too early to start thinking about your next holiday. Have you checked out Mexico recently? From tequila tasting, swimming with horses, to ziplining through the jungle and watching whales and dolphins in their natural habitat, Puerto Vallarta has it all. Visit mexico.jbonair.com to see all the fun PV has to offer. That's at mexico.jbonair.com for hundreds of photos, interviews, and videos from around the tourist hotspot. Check out mexico.jbonair.com for all the fun. That's mexico.jbonair.com.
Jeremy Bradley here, back on The Scribble. Thanks for tuning in at thescribbleshow.com and on SoundCloud and iTunes. When it comes to celebrities, we always hear that they want privacy, and my thought has been, you became a celebrity most likely because you wanted to. Generally, right, you get into show business. If you had some sort of an infamous moment and you weren't really wanting to be a celebrity, I guess that's a little bit different. But when you're a celebrity and you put yourself out there, you expose your family to it. And we often see that with political campaigns, right? Where it's the candidate who is the one that should be the punching bag, and, you don't pile on to their family. And I guess we have seen some exceptions, like when Hillary Clinton was running, and you've got bills passed indiscretions with Monica Lewinsky or whatever brought up. Is that relevant to Hillary's campaign? Anyway, I'm not talking politics. I'm just giving you examples here. So they also say that children should be off limits. And so a couple of weeks ago on Twitter, and it just happened again the other night, Keeping Up with the Kardashians was on, and they start talking about their kids on Twitter. And so somebody says that, their kid is all grown up, or he's becoming such a little gentleman or whatever. And people, how people like to criticize, especially the Kardashians, people started commenting on the kid. He's going to be screwed up. Oh, he's not going to have a real job. Oh, he's not going to do this. Oh, he's not going to be a good person. And then you have the staunch Kardashian defenders who are sticking up for the Kardashians and saying, well, he's a kid, leave him alone. This is about the Kardashian girls, not their youngsters. And I have to say, though, that I realize the kids were sort of forced onto the show when they were young, right? It's not like they were old enough to go and say, to be sat down and explained to them you're going to be on a reality TV show, and this is what's going to happen, and people, mommy's going to, and whoever your dad is, are going to watch you grow up, and everything that you do is going to be on camera. And I feel that almost in a sense that, sorry, you are putting your kids out there. So if you are putting them in the firing range, then it kind of is fair game. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's okay to bully people online and mock them and what have you. What I'm saying, though, is you're putting your family out there, so you don't really have a place to go and say, hey, back off, leave them alone, because you're the one who put them out there. So I repeat, I am not suggesting that teasing and mocking and harassing children online is correct, okay? That's not my point is, you put them out there. So is that okay then? Is it okay for people to go after your family members? And again, maybe that's not the right word, okay. But, are you the one to blame because you did it? So how can you get mad at people when you're the one who's exposing? If you don't want them criticized and put out there, then don't put them out there. I think that we saw the same thing with Kim and Kanye when they had their first kid, that we heard, oh, no, the kid is not going to be on the show, Kanye's not going to be on the show. Well, then money talks, and it's a different story altogether, isn't it? So what do you think about that? You go and put your family, you put your kids out there, you profit from them, you make them really objects, is really what you're doing. And then people lay into them, and suddenly that's not okay. Tell me your thoughts. Send me an email, live@jbonair.com. And again, if you email me and say, how dare you say that harassing kids is okay, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you put them out there. You got to take the licks. Really? I mean, come on. live@jbonair.com. Let me take this one step further, go on to a social media rant. We've got a couple minutes then still, right? Yeah. I have had the same comments for years, and I wrote a newspaper column called I Think Your Kid's Privacy is More Important Than You Do. And really, when you think about any kid that's been born in the past, how long has social media been around? 10 years? It really became popular, let's say, in the last 5, 6, 7 years. But if you've had a baby, or you know somebody who's had a baby in that time, I guarantee you, for the most part, if they're younger and they're on social media, almost that entire life has been broadcast on the internet. Think about it, because in that first few moments, you have a picture taken of mom holding the baby, right? That's generally what she's still puffy and sweaty and gross looking, but she's faking the smile because she's holding the kid, and here's the first picture. And within minutes, that's going on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, whatever it is. And then it's the first everything is captured on camera, the first everything. And so, and it's probably happening now, but I also said that it wouldn't be surprising if suddenly kids have a falling out with their parents and start suing them for invasion of privacy, humiliation, emotional distress, because maybe they had that bathtub picture on the internet or whatever it was. And maybe send me the news story if it has been out there. But I just think that, yeah, you put every minute of your day out there, and you've suddenly opened up your kids. Now, when I have commented about that on social media, when I wrote that column and I posted on Facebook, I had mostly parents defending it and saying, well, my account is locked down and only people that I want to see it can see it, and blah, blah, blah. Here's the deal, though. There is no stopping me from saving that picture or reposting on my page and now spreading it to the Jared Fogels of the world. All those little baby touchers and little boy and girl touchers. Really. So think twice about that. I said, because now that you've sexualized Halloween, and generally it's little girls wearing, sexy cat costumes or whatever it is. I mean, I guess boys could too, but it's mostly girls we see. Again, you're opening that up for jerkin material. I can say that on the podcast, right? I couldn't say that on the radio, but you're giving them wank material. Because your kid is showing her stomach and, basically like wearing a bra and going out for Halloween. So, again, do we blame... who is the victim in that? I was going to say, do we blame the victim? I mean, the victim is the child. Obviously, if something happens to the child, of course, we're not going to blame the child. But what I'm saying is, we blame the parents for that. You're putting your kid out there as a sexualized being, in a way. I mean, I realize the child doesn't view it that way, but as the parent, it's also kind of your responsibility to go and say, maybe you shouldn't dress like... I don't know any of the cartoons now. I think it was Josie and the Pussycats, or Pussycat Dolls or something. I don't remember. That's how old I am. But yeah, so going back to the Kardashians putting their kids out there, you know what? You're putting them in the firing range. When you tweet about them, you know what, you're opening up a can of worms, right? I mean, that's a given. So send me your thoughts live at jbonair.com, live at jbonair.com.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
Jeremy Bradley here, back on the Scribble. I feel like I'm getting old. I'm just going to start the segment by saying that. And I used to make fun of older people when I was young because there was that whole thing about seniors going to bed early, right? They have dinner at 4 o'clock and they're in bed by whatever time. I find that I'm appreciating sleep way too much nowadays. And so what's happened over the past couple of weeks, and I'm not complaining, this is more just an observation more than anything else, is that I can fall asleep on the couch very easily. And what happens is I will have on a TV show, I'm just trying to think, it was Dateline the other night. And I had Dateline on, and it was a 2-hour episode, and about at the halfway mark I was kind of like, you know, I'm sort of feeling tired. It's not late enough to go to bed at this point. It's only about 6 p.m., maybe 7 p.m. And I can feel, I feel it's going to happen. I feel like I'm going to sleep on the couch. And so I try to fight it. I'm sitting up, right? I feel if I'm laying down, then that's a given that I'm going to fall asleep. But at least if I'm sitting up, I'm sort of, you know, I've got to keep my head. And then at about an hour and a half mark, I go and lay down. And by, I'd say about an hour and 45 minutes in, I am out. I fall asleep. And what happens then is I end up waking up, and then I'll put the show on again, fast forward to the last part that I remember, right? Because I don't know the exact time stamp at that point, right? You don't know when you fall asleep, you just do. And so I'm kind of jumping up every 3 minutes, not jumping up physically, jumping up on the show. I'm advancing the show 3 minutes at a time. Okay, I remember them saying that. Okay, I remember hearing that. All right, I remember seeing that. And basically, yeah, it was about the 1 hour 45 to 1 hour 50 mark where I fell asleep the first time. And I was like, okay, there's only like 10 minutes left, so, you know, I'll get through this, right? No problem. I fell asleep probably, you know, a good 3 or 4 more times. So I was awake enough to start the show again. You know, my brain is like, okay, I've got to find out where I was on here. I'll get to the point. And then I fall asleep again. And then I don't know how long that I'm out because the show is over, so it's basically got to be restarted. And I do it again. And eventually I get to the point where I just go and say, you know what? I wasn't meant to see the whole thing. It becomes like a frustration of, I don't even remember the story anymore. Forget it. And then I just delete the show from my PVR, as we Canadians call it. Americans call it a DVR. And that's happened a few times, though, where I will have a TV show, and it's, you know, maybe it's only a 30-minute show or whatever it is, and I fall asleep so many times that eventually I'm just like, you know what? Clearly I'm not into it, so I might as well just end it. And with a show like Dateline, it's a 2-hour episode. That's an investment because you're basically it's a whodunit sort of a thing. So you're wanting to wait till the end of the episode, and yeah, then it's just done. Does this ever happen to you? Send me an email, live at jbonair.com, live at jbonair.com. Again, I find that there are many nights where it's almost like a drunk blackout kind of thing, where it's like, okay, I fall asleep, and then I'm just so tired that I just stay on the couch. I'm like, I don't know I'm just going to lay here. And then you wake up at like 3 a.m. when you come to, and it's kind of like, oh, I guess I just passed out on the couch. All right. So have the dogs gone out? Is the house alarm set? Have the rabbits been fed? Did I brush my teeth? Like, what? You got to almost, you have to not regroup. I can't think of the word. Reconcile. You got to reconcile what you did. You got to go through your brain. Okay, did I do this? Kind of like when you've had too much to drink. That's how I used to gauge it when I would come home after too many drinks. I'd be like, how drunk was I? If I set the house alarm and the rabbits were fed, and if I've got braces, so if I put my elastics in, then I knew what I was doing and I'm okay. If I don't do those steps, then I'm concerned about that. So again, these things on the couch, it's not that I'm drunk passing out. It's just my brain or something in my body is just that tired where it's like, you're out, you're done, you're done. Does it happen to you? Send me an email live@jbonair.com.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some real heat,